start chatting about this month. Like, why do we call this season of the witch? It's, it's so funny how I can look back at the last 5 years, I would say, and it is just wild to me how the archetype of the witch has expanded, has blown up, to how so many women are embracing that archetype. People don't even know what they're embracing, but they're calling themselves a witch. It's, sometimes I look at it and I get a little shadowy and irritated, but at the end of the day, actually, I think the interest in witchcraft is so beautiful. And just the fact that the word witch means power to so many women. Is that the trending dress from the shop? Yes, I got it on. I don't do any, I don't know why I don't, but TikTok shop, I'm not a creator for that or whatever, but I got it from Hannah, I believe. So, yeah. Anyway, back to the archetype of the witch, and not speaking of my dress, but of the witch archetype. And, I get hung up a lot of times on how, like, now we're seeing a new archetype of the witch expand. Like, I seen a TikTok page for Mormon witches. I seen a TikTok page for Christian witches, and I'm like, you're basically advertising that you're a witch in the broom closet. You're a witch owning the actual movement that killed their own people for walking the path that us real witches walk. And so it's really blurring the lines of what it means to be a witch. Who is the witch? And the sad fact is that our history was wiped off the face of the earth by Christians, by the Roman Catholic Church, through the conversion of pagan Europe, which spread across the entire planet, basically. So, when you're looking historically for what it means to be a witch, excuse me. Excuse me. What it means to be a witch, it's hard to pin that down or nail down a exact definition. And so what that does is it leaves it open-ended for people to just claim witch that really have only just begun to grasp that archetype in the last 5 years. So for myself, I have known I was a witch since I was a child, since I was 5 years old. I was raised in a Mormon church, in a household where we all kind of, the women, it was all sisters. There was 4 of us, and we all knew we were witches. It was kind of like we joked about it behind closed doors. I was the first one to start embracing the archetype of the witch. I started doing spell work in high school, and officially had my name removed from the record of the church I was raised in when I was 28. I divorced my husband, and at that point realized that I had the option. I'm surprised it took me till I was 28 to realize this, but that I got to choose what was right for me, and it didn't have to be what I was raised with, which I was raised of the mindset that like bloodline meant everything, like very toxic mindset of like your family, no matter what, you can treat each other like crap and you still have this like unspoken bond, and there's like this like beauty and romanticism of that, but living in it is absolutely toxic. And so there's been a lot of relationships severed through the years of me taking back my power. I am now 50 years old. I've been out of the broom closet for almost 25 years. It's been 23 23 years, I guess. 23 years out of the broom closet. I don't identify as Wiccan yet. The only true roots us witches have were laid down by the Wiccan movement. So I have great respect for the Wiccan movement. And, you know, I toy with the idea of actually owning that I'm Wiccan because a lot of my knowledge is Wiccan based. But, you know, traditionally in Wiccan, you have a high priest, a high priestess, you know, and you believe in a certain structured path. And I, as a witch, coming from being raised in a household, being gaslit around, you know, what I knew was truth and what wasn't truth, landed me in this place where I don't want to own any identification with any belief system. And that's why I really only identify as a solitary witch. Yet I'm watching as the witch archetype gets stripped down through the empowerment of women and through the empowerment. And so it's so confusing what's happening, watching, and it's like, the archetype of the witch is empowering women, but it's also empowering them to say things like, I'm a Mormon witch, I'm a Christian witch. And to me, if you're claiming that, you're just still in the broom closet. And it's actually very harmful to the true archetype of the witch, because owning the label as witch, as who you are, means stripping away all that holds you back, makes you conform to what everyone else wants you to be. And this is where we are right now. We are coming into the season of the witch with the hunter, or the hunter moon, or the harvest moon. It's known as one of the two. And it's in Aries, and it's a blood moon, and it's a super moon. So what this means is we are stripping away all of the things that are shadow Aries. And Aries is all about the I am. You know, who do you proclaim yourself to be after I am? And you hear on my page, if you haven't followed me, go follow me. You guys heart up the live for me. Heart, heart, heart. Doesn't cost you anything to heart. Thank you for the gifts. What this means on my page, when you see us chanting, I am, earth, air, fire, water, spirit. I am, I am, I am. I am spirit, earth, air, fire, water. Say this with me, because, you know, this is one of the staple foundational concepts in witchcraft. Silver Ravenwolf, I believe, was the one to like solidify or put it in writing the chant, earth, air, fire, water, return, return, return. And whichever one you're doing, Stella, Witch of the Moon, and I wrote the one, I am, spirit, earth, air, fire, water. I am, I am, I am, because when I was posting prior retreats, the Practical Magic retreat, where the women are chanting earth, air, fire, water, I return, 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 we got all these questions from, not even questions, a lot of crap from people on Witch Talk. We were in a cemetery, we had our shoes on. I promise you, in Arizona, in that cemetery, you don't want to be standing barefoot on goat heads. So of course we had our shoes on. When we are back at the retreat house, our shoes are off 90% of the time, unless there is a personal reason of self-care to not to. And the thing is you come on TikTok and it's like all the witches want to be telling you that they are the one that know how to do it right. And honestly, it's like there are a few foundational things, but really the craft it spans across the entire planet through cultures. So depending on what cultured person you're talking to, what culture they identify with, they'll tell you their version of the craft. So what you need to be looking for in the craft is those foundational teachings. And I am spirit, earth, air, fire, water is a foundational teaching. So we made our own chant up from earth, air, fire, water, because another thing on Witch Talk that people were giving me crap for was because they were like, there's also ether. It's not just earth, air, fire, and water. And it's like, and what are you returning? And it's like, that is the most ignorant comment. And I know I'm just bashing Witch Talk people right now. I apologize, because there's amazing people on Witch Talk, but also there's this level of toxicity. And I never want to come across, even though I am guiding women, teaching women, healing, I am a witch. I am never going to tell you, unless it's something completely backwards and off the wall, that it's wrong, because everybody can do anything the way that they want to do it. The only thing I stand against is organized religion. So when I see religion being brought into the craft, you will hear me state things like, these witches that are claiming to be Mormon witches and Christian witches are not truly identifying or embodying the true essence of the witch. So to follow them and learn from them is toxic, because you're learning from somebody who's still in the broom closet. Now, one of those foundational teachings as earth, air, fire, water, return, from one of the older Wiccan teachers, Silver Ravenwolf, is embodying the essence of the pentacle. So the pentacle is the 5-pointed star in the circle. You see it over there. I have it in my room here, everywhere. And the 5-pointed star, it represents power and protection, to keep it short. If you stand up and hold your arms out and stand like this, okay? If you stand like this, your body, especially in your witch hat, your body is the shape of that pentacle on my wall right there. When a witch is doing her magic, or their magic, I shouldn't say her. I work primarily with women or women identifying people, so I will constantly say her, but I don't mean any offense by that. This is one of the most powerful protection symbols that you can use, and it's because it represents all of the elements, and really the elements are foundational to the witch. And that the elements that are of this earth are earth, air, fire, water, and ether, right? Ether represents spirit. That is the point of the pentacle. And the reason we say return, return, return is because we are coming from thousands of years of bloodlines, no matter where you're from, that have been programmed by the witch wound, who have been programmed to fear the embodiment of the feminine. So women are completely disembodied. Men are completely disembodied from their feminine aspects. And you know, no matter what gender you identify, or if you don't identify as any at all, we all have a masculine and a feminine side of us that needs to be somewhat imbalanced. One will always be slightly teetering a little more than the other, but really the path of healing is the path of owning those elements within you. Your spirit is the fire within you. Ether represents spirit as well. Water represents the blood that is pulsing through your veins. Earth is your body. And as witches, we practice earth-based magic. Now, not all solitary witches identify as Wiccan. I don't identify as Wiccan, yet I lean heavily on the fact that a lot of foundational teachings come from Wicca. And like I said in the beginning, I've never identified as Wiccan, but I'm seeing more and more as time goes on why one might want to claim that label. However, it is considered a religion, and one of my things on this earth, this reason for returning in a body of a witch, at this time is because I see that the fall of religion is the only way that we will heal as a society, as a planet. It is the roots of patriarchy, is organized religion. And we have to start learning as a people to live sovereign. And that is another thing of the witch, is sovereignty is the witch's birthright, is freedom. And to be sovereign, you cannot have a savior. So thank you for the gifts. Thank you for liking the live. So to be sovereign means that you are choosing to save yourself. And the over-exploitation of these comments that make women feel empowered, that the comments like it wasn't witches they burned, it was women, it was healers, it was midwives, that's actually exploited. When you look at it, it was women across the board. It did not matter if you identified as pagan. The pagans were pinpointed and targeted more, but they killed their own, you guys. Even people that were conforming to Christianity. And so when we're putting stuff out there to empower women, and I see it empowers them, and I'm like, well, anything that empowers us is good, but it's exploiting something that's false. It wasn't all midwives. It wasn't all healers. It just wasn't. There were men as well. There were people of color. There were cats. I believe there were as many cats killed during that period as there were women. And historically, only recorded is more the men than the women, because women were property. So unless you were of status of some sort or wealth, usually the women were not being recorded. However, we do know it was more women than anyone else. You know, when I look at it, I think no one really wanted to be labeled as a witch back then. But those that probably were the real witches, what we have to remember is that they predated the Christian movement. So they were pagan. Their magic was informed by that pagan upbringing. Now, pagan, when I say pagan, it doesn't mean the same thing as modern paganism. That's something that confuses the heck out of people too, is because people are like thinking that pagan is like Thelmism and all these different lines of occultism, when really pagan identified a period of time before the conversion of pagan Europe. They honored the old deities, gods, plural, with an S. They honored multiple. So everybody was pagan before the conversion, really, unless you were living in a area that was like, I don't think they were considered pagans in Jerusalem and those areas, right? But really the word witch, it originated in those areas that are European and Celtic, and then like it spread and became this pandemic across the planet that everyone was fearing this supernatural being that was the witch. So again, because they burned everything, all of the history of the witch, you know, they destroyed the pagan records. All we have now is what we call folklore, right? And so folklore and witchcraft are also melding. But to be real, you cannot be pagan and Christian. So those that are like, I'm a Christian witch or I'm a Mormon witch, like, that goes directly against the one of the few foundations that we have historically. And that is the witch predated the conversion. It predated the concept of Christianity. And everything that Jesus I'm not going to even call him Jesus Christ. Jesus, everything that Jesus or Yeshua was a witch. Why did they demonize Magdalene and hide her in the shadows along with the witch? Because if she was practicing everything Jesus was, then she was a witch too, right? We all know they have their history completely mixed up. The Christians took their names and decided what their history was going to be that was brought through our societies. So, don't even get me going on that, because that is a complete thing within itself. But Jesus and Magdalene, they were witches, in my opinion. So when the Christians are like, find Jesus, it's like, you need to go find who this Jesus Christ is that you're saying is going to save you, because I believe he didn't die on that cross. Some people believe he died on the cross. I don't believe he died on that cross. I believe all the Marys gave him herbs to lower his heart rate. Here I go down this rabbit hole, and I said, don't get me started on this. Anyway, I believe they gave him herbs to lower his heart rate, which actually helped him be able to survive hanging on that cross. And the reason why Magdalene spent the years of her life in a cave was because if Jesus was spotted, he would have been killed. And so I believe they lived out their life there having children. I believe the Christian foundation is so unstable when you look at it realistically, and it does not align with the witch archetype at all. Not just for the fact that they killed the witches, or that their Bible states multiple times that witches are evil and all the things, but you cannot have a savior and then be a witch, because the witches were known. Like, one thing we do know is that the witch and the priestess archetype were one and the same. They were oracles. They had mediumship and prophetic abilities. Now, I think the reason why we lump in the herbalist and the midwives is because, yes, they tended to have those healing abilities. But quite honestly, in the old days, yes, there were doctors and medicine women and medicine men, but I believe the witches carried a different wisdom. All the doctors held the herbal wisdom. Does that mean all doctors and midwives and healers were herbalists? No, but that's what they're exploiting it to look like. I mean, we're witches. Sorry, I didn't mean not healers. They are healers. They just weren't all witches. But the witches, the difference there, the one difference is that oracular ability, the prophetic ability, the ability to channel. And that is why biblically they have kings who are hiring witches to give them information. And yet at the same time, they're like, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. It's like, okay, and you're going to call yourself a Christian witch? Like, there's no way you can make sense of that to me, for me. So for myself, coming onto social media and sharing a message is really my heart wanting to solidify who the witch is, but also to empower women as a whole. So not everyone has to be a witch, right? But I would love to live in a world where the witch archetype is not demonized, where I am still not going on my page daily and removing comments from Christians that are gifts of like women burning and things like this that are just horrible. Hi Anita, I just seen you hop on. We missed you in the coven, sister. Blessed be. The archetype of the witch is a potent archetype, and social media, as much as I love it, and it makes me smile, all the women that feel empowered by claiming witch, but who's who's the real witch. It's like playing Where's Waldo? Who is really embodying the archetype of the witch? And, that brings us back to those foundational teachings, right? Thank you guys for liking the live and sending the gifts. It means so much to me. I'm on here every Sunday morning. Embodying even the true essence of a witch, that's where I'm like toying with the only archetype, or the only people that can say like this is the path of the witch would be the Wiccans. And yet I don't want to identify as Wiccan because I don't want to have to follow somebody else's structure. So I spend a lot of time, I'm kind of a hermit witch. I keep to myself a lot because for me to embody the archetype of the witch that I'm fully embodying now in my life, I have had to disconnect from what I would call the way I lived my life, the mainstream way of living my life when my kids were younger. My kids are all grown now. And when my kids were younger, I live in a small town where it's mostly Christians and Republicans. I am definitely the oddball here. And so for a very long time, I rode that wave of, definitely once I denounced my Christianity, I denounced it, but I rode that line, the liminal, I am witchy, I am witchy seemed to be my word, but there's a difference between witchy and witch. And I think a lot of what we're seeing women embody is the witchy, not the actual witch. So what does it mean to embody the witch? You have to start doing shadow work. You've got to start healing the programming. Even if you weren't raised in a religion or in a church, you have to identify the fact that your brain has been programmed, your nervous system has been programmed by a society that is predominantly Christian. Now, on top of that, your DNA is coming from thousands, hundreds of years of conditioning that the witch, even just the word witch, is going to ignite some sense of fear, and for you to not own the word witch after the I am. And so to embody the elements, to be the pentacle, you have got to come fully down and into your body. And our bodies are stuffed with trauma from our ancestors and trauma from being raised in this society. And so the shadow work is everything. It's exploring in any way possible what programmed us, untangling it. We as witches are weavers. One of the old folklores is when you stand under a spider web, instead of pulling it down, if the weaver is up there, if the spider is up there, you better leave that web. And as you stand underneath it, you make a wish, because the witch and grandmother spider are one. They are weavers. Just as grandmother spider weaves her webs in the corners of our homes, the witches are weaving webs of healing. You must be fully embodied to claim that you are living your life as a witch, not witchy. I'm not talking to those of you that are like, I'm witchy. I'm talking to those of you who are like, I am a witch. Do you know what you're weaving your magic with? You are weaving those elements. So the elements are foundational, and yet the elements that exist within this body, your breath is your air. Again, your blood is your water. Your flesh is earth. The fire is spirit. Ether is the all, or spirit. Either way, because of our conditioning and our programming, we are stuck up here. And so the reason the witch does shadow work, they reach into the recesses of their unconscious mind, meaning things you don't acknowledge or are even aware of about yourself. They dig for that. And the reason they dig for that is so they can fully embody their spirit, their soul essence can be fully embodied into this meat suit right here, because the most powerful witches are not the ones who are up and out here floating with their amethyst in a trance in meditation. They are going into meditation at times, moving into trance at times to gain that overall transcendent wisdom. But the body is clear because of the shadow work they have done. So when they come out of trance, instead of staying up and out, keeping them unstable, they go down and into their body and they embody this wisdom. When you embody this wisdom, things happen. You can move and shift things with your will. Now, even those of us who have I've done years of shadow work and years of shadow work, and I still find more shadow work to do. Shadow work is an ongoing practice. It's not something you do and then you're done with. It's a lifelong practice right now. Hopefully one day on this planet, it will be what I see it to be, maybe some Atlantean, dystopian, mushroom vision, ayahuasca vision of this planet where everyone is at peace, people aren't harming the children, and there won't need to be any shadow work done because we are all living fully embodied and sovereign. When we are each living sovereign and fully embodied, we will not be harming another. So, it really, I would love, and I wouldn't love actually. I was going to say I would love to get together with these witches who are like, I don't believe in doing no harm and I don't believe in this and that. And it's like, you're talking out your ass. You're talking from a place of shadow. And one of the most important things right now as a witch is for us to claim our birthright of sovereignty on this planet, and that just like a regular human or a regular human that's Christian can both carry dark and light within them, so can the witch. It's not, are you a good witch or a bad witch? Are you a good Christian or a bad Christian? Are you a good human or a bad human? It's not a thing. If anything, historically, if we're going to look at history, you guys, there are more bad Christians. If we're going to label people good and bad, historically the Christians were bad. The Christians murdered hundreds of thousands of people for walking the path I walk. I don't believe those hundreds of thousands of people they killed were all herbalists, healers, and midwives. No, some of them were men. Some of them were midwives, some of them were healers. I'm sure some of them were witches. I think most witches probably protected themselves in a way that they weren't killed. And that's why we have carried our wisdom through the shadows, just like Mary Magdalene's truth was carried through the shadows and found buried deep within the Sahara Desert. The witch's wisdom has been woven into the fabric of many family lines. I believe many women are back in bodies in this lifetime who were Christians killed as witches, who, there weren't that many who would have identified themselves as witches back then. So we're still figuring out in this day and age what it means to be a witch, practicing the old ways. And we have these few things. And one of those things is historically the witches were helping people. In every story, there is nothing historical out there that places witches actually harming people. But we have hundreds of thousands brutally murdered, children murdered by Christians, and yet those same Christians flood my feed, telling me I am evil. So this is why I am so fiercely protective of the archetype of the witch. If you are going to claim I am witch, use this full hunter harvest super blood full moon in Aries to release the shadows of Aries, the shadow of hiding who you are. If you are going to claim you are a witch, then walk the path. You can do it. You can be seen as who you are. It doesn't matter if you have had 100 past lives as a witch or not. All of us have had past lives as pagan, and every witch was pagan historically. Now, our modern interpretation of pagan means something different than what it actually means as a period of time before the Christian conversion. It's like all of us, we only didn't exist since the conversion of Christianity. We had many lifetimes in many other places. The witch predates Christianity. So I'm not saying everyone has to own the archetype of a witch, right? If you don't feel like you're a witch, great, but I would love it if you laid down your swords to the witch and started really digging into what it means to be Christian and what you are taking on. The amount, the energy behind that term Christian. There is historically more harm. Look at what we have in the news constantly. Priests who are molesting children, pedophiles, torture. They tortured people, not even just upon their death, not even burning these women alive during the witch trials, but they tortured them with actual real chastity belts, with chairs made of nails. They tied you to chairs and drown you. This is the history of Christians. This is the history of Christians. And you're telling me I'm evil? I'm demonic? Humanity needs to get their head straight. 1, 2, if you're claiming to be a witch, please, for the sake of those of us that are really carrying on that archetype, instead of calling yourself a Christian witch or a Mormon witch, call yourself a witch in the broom closet. Please, state what you are so people know who you're teaching from. The only reason we find any scripture, any of this stuff like that, any archangels, is because for the witches to continue and for those that still identified as pagan to not be killed, they had to pretend. They had to pretend that they were Christian to not be killed. So they started using words like mullein instead of graveyard dirt. The African people brought over into New Orleans. The reason why we have hoodoo, which hoodoo is a combination of voodoo, European magic, and a bunch of other different types of magic, is because the African people that were brought over to be slaves, their owners had 7 days to have them baptized. They wanted to continue with their voodoo to have some sense of power. So they gave up their saints and started using archangels. That's the only reason that you see in hoodoo use of scripture and stuff. We are smart enough to see this in modern days. Let's stop using these scriptures. We don't need to. You're not going to be killed for your magic, at least here in the US. I know that's not true everywhere, right? There's still areas of Africa I know that kill witches, so I'm not saying everywhere it's 100% safe. However, majority of you that are listening here, it is safe. Leave the biblical crap, manipulations behind. That's just a book. It's a book that was interpreted from scrolls, that was manipulated to feed the narrative, to solidify the narrative of what the conversion of pagan Europe ended up being. So they programmed the entire society, and they were successful, right? They were successful because it wasn't just Europe. It was like a damn pandemic. And I call it a pandemic is because pandemic spans the entire planet, right? And it's a sickness. And the witch wound, what they did was a sickness. It was a mental sickness. It is a mental sickness when you program people to think it's okay to kill other people, to kill animals. You know, if you look, I heard just in the UK recently, oh my gosh, and I forgot her name, a really old witch. I want to say she was in her 90s, and she was a vegetarian. I never had heard of her, and she just passed away. And I was really happy to read about her because she was vegetarian, and I am vegetarian. And not that all witches are vegetarian, they aren't. But I see this being an increasingly popular thing amongst witches, is that it's a hard feat for a lot of people to do. But if you care about animals, if you are really trying to live your life and do no harm, you can't say, I love my dog and I'm going to eat this pig for dinner. And so, you know, a lot of the witches are now even moving into that life of vegetarianism to do no harm, and veganism and to do no harm. So will I say witches do no harm, but do witches curse? Absolutely. Will, and you know, this has taken me some time to come out and say, because, you know, I would always teach prior to this last year, like, to not curse, just because I believe that the people that are actually really rooted in the craft, really witches, not just witchy, there's so few of us. There's a lot of witchy people, but there's not a lot of real witches. And I don't want to be the one teaching the witchy people to harm others, because I do believe we as witches have the power to curse just as much as we have the power to bless. But I also believe that in the law of three. Now, whatever you call it, even if you don't believe in the law of three, because all the witches are going to be like, but not all witches believe in the law of three. And it's like, fine, don't believe in the law of three, but science is real, and like energy attracts like energy, right? So even if you're not Wiccan, like energy attracts like energy. So if you are not cursing in a way that is for self-care or self-protection, if you are doing it out of ego, out of just purely shadow, you're gonna match that energy. So the only way to curse and not have it matched back in your life is by you doing enough shadow work that you know when you are cursing someone that you are doing it for the right reasons. And yes, there are right reasons to curse people. When you've hexed, which a hex is in binding, when you've bound them, and the binding alone is considered baneful because you're taking someone's free will away. If you are sovereign, you believe everyone else is sovereign and has their free will, correct? Correct. So binding someone, if it's not working, if your power bumping up against theirs with a bind isn't working, and to protect yourself, which protecting yourself is sovereign, that is not baneful. Protecting your child, your land, your home, that is not baneful. And if it requires you to curse someone, then so be it. But I promise you, for the witches that are not, that have done the shadow work, that are coming from a place of true foundational moral ethic background, are not going to be just pissed at their ex for cheating on them and hexing them and cursing them, because that would meet them back in this life, and not just in this life. Remember, karma's a bitch doesn't mean you're going to match energy in this life. Karma is referring to the next life. And witches are, karma is a construct that comes from India, from Asian backgrounds, and witches do believe in that. We just believe in past life. We believe in, we believe in having other lives, multiple lives. So the concept of karma, witches believe in it, right? Because if you don't resolve it in this life, you're going to do it again in the next life with that person. So if you hate them in this life, you better get right with it. Because if you don't, you're going to come back in the next life and marry that ex again. Guess why? Because you cursed him in this life. And you didn't do it for self-care. You did it out of baneful ego, right? Because your pride was hurt. So when I am teaching baneful magic, I am not just teaching you to haphazardly curse and hex people. I'm teaching you the same way that Aradia taught the people. When that ability came through Diana, goddess of the moon, she gave Aradia the ability to teach those on the witches on the planet to bless and to curse. He gave her the 13 powers of the witch. One of them in the same sentence is to bless and to curse. And that's because they're two sides of the same coin. And it was because the people were being so oppressed by the Roman Empire that they needed to take their power back, right? I've been looking at Etsy and the amount of people that are doing spells on Etsy and making a living doing this. And it honestly, I'm sure there are some authentic witches on there, but I would say don't trust them, you guys, unless you know them. Because I think a lot of people have gotten their hands on curses and hexes and they don't know what they're doing. And when you're putting your seal of approval on some energy manipulation that you don't understand, karmically it's going to come back to you, and also law of attraction way it will come back to you. So be aware of what you're doing. So many people message me asking if I will do a love spell for them, if I will hex their ex. It's like, I don't do magic for other people unless it's someone I really know well, because I only know there's always two sides to the story, right? I never tell someone to hex or curse anyone, especially, and I'm not going to point out, I'm not going to be like, you're in shadow, even if I see it. And 100% I've seen it. 100% I've had friends tell me how to hex. I really want to hex my ex. I really want to, and I can see they're in complete shadow, but they don't see it because they're in their shadow. So, I guess I like to debunk what the Christians are saying that we're doing is negative or bad. Demons is another thing. We're invoking demons. We're not invoking demons. And I do know that all Wiccans pretty much just say like demons are witchcraft, or not witchcraft, demons. Demons are Christian concept, Christian mythology, just like the devil, just like Satan. And it doesn't belong to us, so we don't mess with it. Now, there are some solitary witches I know that also proclaim to be demonologists, but the word demonologist, or the identification as someone that's a demonologist and someone that or the witch, they are not synonymous. Synonymous? Is that how you say that word? Sometimes I mix up my words. If you knew me in real life, I mix up my words so much. Usually when I'm channeling, I don't. So it's always amazing to even like my husband, like I have some I don't even know what it is. I'll put the like beginning of the letter at the end and the end letter at the beginning and make up new words. But this usually doesn't happen when I'm channeling because the energy is just moving through me. So anyway, we do not invoke demons. I always say it's some form of dyslexia, but I've never been diagnosed with that. So anyway, if you hear me do that, I do it a lot more at home. It keeps my husband quite entertained. He gets a good laugh at it. But really, you guys, I just, with this full moon in Aries coming up, I really am feeling that call to just, I don't know, call people out, because it's like, unless someone's willing to call a spade, and we keep trying to be nice and tiptoe around things so people don't get upset at us, we're gonna lose the potency of who a witch is. And there are other witches out there like me. There are other witches out there who can teach you the foundations of the craft, who are attempting to do it in the best way possible. But you've got to be discerning, because so many of these witches are coming from shadow. Yeah. And, I love you. I love everyone. I don't believe anyone is innately bad. Even people that have harmed me, I don't, there are a few words that, like, being raised in a religious household, that are very triggering to me, that I don't use a lot. And one of them is faith, and one of them is forgiveness. Both those words can mean something completely different than the church has twisted them to be. And faith, for me, instead of using faith, I use the word trust, because I was told to believe something, to have faith in something when I was in church, that everything told me in me was not true. I could see the logic of it not being true, but they were like, you just have to have faith to be pure of heart, blah, 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 blah. Like, I spent most of my life thinking I was an evil person, a bad person, because I didn't have this faith of a mustard seed. Another one is forgiveness. Forgiveness, the way the Christians preach it, it makes you feel like you're saying it's okay what happened to you. And it's not. And that's not what forgiveness is. I don't even know another word for forgiveness, but when I use forgiveness, I really try to solidify what I mean by forgiveness. And it means that you're letting go of the energy of hate and anger because it's harming you. It doesn't mean that you're doing anything for them. You could completely cut the cord with them and walk away if they have harmed you. But letting go of that anger and that hatred that goes along with hating a perpetrator. And I've been harmed by people in the church, family members, men I trusted, and to let go of that, it's making us sick as a society. And so we have to forgive, and I wish there was another freaking word than forgive, because it's not okay what anyone has done to me. Any of the healing I've had to do from, I get worried I'm going to get taken off for saying words I'm not allowed to say, but you guys know what I mean. And it doesn't mean that I'm saying what the person did was okay, or that I even want to see them ever again in my life. It means I'm releasing the trauma, and the trauma really is the energy we continue to carry forward. So instead of using forgive, it's to release the trauma. And really, there's a traumatic event, but trauma is the energy you carry from that traumatic event never being resolved within you. And I don't think that making it okay what that person did to you that's not healing the trauma. But what has come along with that shadow work for me is that even though there were decisions I had to make, like I had to tell my mom, which was the beginning of the end for me in the relationship with my mom, when looking back, I had to tell her I would no longer go and see my uncle or help my uncle. And it wasn't, I had a lot of compassion for him, a lot of empathy. I understand how he became the person he became, but that did not mean that I needed to put myself around him again and again. And so for me, healing that energy within me, to be able to heal that, I had to be able to get away from him and not continue to see him. And through doing that, I was able to have this level of compassion and empathy and understanding that he was harmed too, and that's why he harmed me, right? And so I still don't think it's okay what he did. I still think he had a sickness, but I let go of the anger and the hate that was part of what was making me sick. You know, so many of us on this planet are taking antidepressants, and I don't believe it's just from that everyone is really like just depressed due to a chemical imbalance. I think the chemical imbalance, and I'm not a doctor again, I'm a witch, the chemical imbalance that is requiring us to take these antidepressants is because we are being required to live our lives with people that have harmed us. We are continuing to go to churches where harm has been done to us. Go find your own Jesus. I just talked about this. You see this person in the comments, find Jesus? He's not mine to find, honestly. He's a witch. You guys are the ones who have misinterpreted him. You need to go find him. You even gave him a new last name, Christ. He should be Jesus Witch. You know, that's what we really should be calling him. So anyway, the trauma of re-exposing ourselves to things again and again and again is continuing to harm us. And Marjorie, are you on here? Are any of my moderators on here? Because Queen Nikki needs to be blocked. Christians, I will never. Thank you, Marjorie. I didn't know if you've seen that. I was just seeing find Jesus, find Jesus, find Jesus. Like, that's the stupidest thing to say. Find Jesus. You know, if that person, Queen Nikki, or any other person that tells me to find Jesus, or anyone else to find Jesus, if they really knew Jesus, if they really looked up their history, they would find that they were part of the true evilness that is running this planet. And, you know, most witches don't go around hating Christians, and I don't go around hating Christians, even though it might sound like I hate them. I really hate the church. I hate the religion. I hate that people are okay with believing and going along, like to be a part of a group. They're willing to know that their history killed so many people. And it's mind-boggling to me. And that they hate witches and preach Jesus, yet witches do everything Jesus did. It just, sometimes I'm like, I used to think like, how can I be so alone in this world? And I guess coming on social media has helped me realize, as you guys are listening to me and you're agreeing with me, it's like, I'm not alone. There are other people out there that see this same BS, that want healing. It's like, how do we as a whole shift? And you know, there's a lot of this like, we're timeline hopping and blah 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 blah, which makes people think our consciousness, we're just going to wake up tomorrow and our consciousness is going to be different, and it's not. It's not. We are bridging two ages. We're bridging an old age to a new age. And for things to destruct, it's got to get ugly. Think about the element of fire. You know, I've had to learn to work with fire. I have a lot of fear around fire. These candles back here the other day, I'm so crazy anal about not leaving my candles on, and I left them on when I left for 2 hours the other day, and my animals were here, and oh my gosh, I am so, thank Goddess, thank the universe, thank the protection wards around my house, nothing happened. Because fire is, to me, I've got some past life things, just put it that way. So I've really had to work with the fire for it to become an ally of me, an embodied aspect of me. And the element of fire, when you see, that's where we're at right now at this beginning of the season of the witch, with this hunter harvest super blood full moon in Aries is the fire, right? So this fire at this full moon is coming into, when you think about how the fire, the destruction that fire can cause, the loss of life that the fire, destruction of the fire through fire, what that looks like. And you know, I was driving by this area where I live, because it's kind of in the mountains. I actually live in the valley, but the mountains are all around me, and we were driving through this area that was burned about 5 years ago. And I was like, wow, we used to drive by here and it was completely black, and now it's like all green. There's flowers growing out there, and it's like on the other side of the destruction, the power of destruction, the fire, even though it destructs and burns things away, we as humans cannot survive without the fire. The sun is the fire. We cannot survive without the masculine counterpart to the feminine. But we also cannot survive without the gravitational pull of the moon. So we cannot survive without the moon or the sun. So it's this life. Do you ever have those moments where you're just like, what the fuck? Like, and I guess I have that a lot lately. But it is like, how aren't there more of us that are on the same wavelength? Again, not that everyone's a witch, but it's like, how can't we all see the problem is on our planet? The power of, the desire for power. The desire for power in our governments and in religion is the toxicity that we see in witch talk. Where I was talking about earlier, the witches that want to be like, I am, like they're telling all the other witches they don't do it right and blah, 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 blah. It's like, this Aries full moon is that. It's stripping away that false you. The witch is sovereign, embodied by that Aries archetype, is powerful. The Aries archetype in its light is a protector of women and children. Did you know that? We mostly focus on Aries being the god of war, but Aries in light is the protector of women and children. So strip away the god of war at this Aries hunter full blood super moon at the beginning of the season of the witch, because there's a lot of women walking around with Aries shadow, competitive as hell, Competition is not going to heal us. It's not going to heal our society. There's not one person. You guys are not going to follow Mystic Harmony or Mystic Witch or whatever you call me, and that's going to be the person to follow. It's about being sovereign collectively. Does that make sense? Sovereign collectively. When each of us are sovereign, there is no war. Sovereignty means that you have integrity. You do what you know is right because you know it's right. You don't do what you've been told is right because you're worried you're going to burn in hell because that's what your priest or your pastor told you. We are burning away darkness. You know what's funny, from the last retreat, we spent so much time teasing about this one part of our besom ceremony, to burn away darkness and bless this besom, to where my husband, who was there as like a bodyguard, he knew we were using the same term, burn away darkness and bless this besom. He had to go cut down a tree at my daughter's house, or this tree that keeps, it's like, what do you call it, a sucker? It replants, it's invasive, it replants itself everywhere, and so it keeps replanting itself, and it grows so fast in the front of their house, and they've don't even let people in our area plant these trees anymore because they just grow everywhere. So we went to cut it down, and I said, well, I know you're going to cut it down, you've got to, because it's by the road, but remember, it's a living tree, so ask it to pull back its energy before you cut it down, and tell it to go back to the earth. And he sent me a picture from my daughter's house and of him cutting down the tree, and he says, I burn away darkness and bless this tree. And I'm like, oh my gosh. It's so, but that is what the fire is. Back to what I was talking about when I was talking about the sun and the moon, and I was just like, all of a sudden had this moment, like, why do I even have to tell people this? But the season of the witch, it's descent into the body, into the earth. Okay, we are descending, right? This, as the witch's new year on Samhain, which Samhain is at the end of the month, on the 31st is the calendar year. Solar Samhain is the 15th degree of Scorpio, which is usually those first few days of November sometime. So in that window, but we're descending right now. We are in this time where the veils are the thinnest because we are descending into the earth. You see the feminine archetype, the women, those that embody the feminine are getting excited about the season of the witch, even if they don't identify as witches, because this is our time. The moon has her reign, right? We at Samhain, we're at that place of fire, or not at Samhain, at the Aries full moon, where we're burning away darkness and blessing our lives with who we are. So what are you letting go of? We're in the full descent right now. We are in the last full moon of the witch's year, wheel of the year. Because at Samhain, that is the witch's new year. So we as witches actually begin our new year November 1st. So this entire winter season, it's like not just Samhain being when the veils are the thinnest, we're already there. I look at the veils being the thinnest like a month before Samhain, all the way until a month after Yule. It's like this liminal space that we are floating in. We're understanding what it means to be on the bridge in between the worlds. A liminal space is like being at the water's edge, where the water meets the earth on the beach, or where the creek meets the rocks on the riverbed or the shoreline of trees. You're in that space where you're not on the earth and you're not in the water, you're kind of in both, right? And because we're in this time and space right now, there is a lot of people experiencing sightings of spirits. They're seeing past loved ones. And that's because when the veil's thin, it's easier for them to show themselves to us. You know, I believe that all time is happening now, and I don't believe when we pass that the other dimension is up there in the clouds. I believe it's right here with us. Everywhere, above, below, it's everywhere. But life is like a TV, right? And dimensions are like a TV. And so because of the dimensions, like you turn on your TV and you tune into one channel, but there's hundreds of other channels, right? So when the veil's thin, it's like you can see all those channels at once, depending on how sensitive you are. So even people that have no mediumship abilities or think they have no mediumship abilities, all humans are mediums to some extent. We all have the ability to see spirit. It's how programmed we are to believe we can't that keeps the veils very thick. So you're seeing, you're sensing more, you're seeing more signs if you're willing to acknowledge them. You're seeing more spirits. You're having dreams of loved ones. It's their time to connect with you at this ending. And so when you are burning away the darkness right now, coming up to this Aries full moon, remember on the other side of Samhain, which is shortly after that, you know, a few weeks, that there is something new that is going to be reborn. So don't just let this full moon pass you by without recognizing what it is you're burning away. What programming are you burning away? What darkness are you burning away that has acted as protection, but it's been a veil to who you really know yourself to be? So I want you to really think about that. And also to think about the fact that Aries in shadow is god of war, right? Aries in light is protector of women and children. You know, who are you choosing to be in this life? Are you embodying authentically who the witch is? You know, maybe you're one of those that's calling yourself a Christian witch, and maybe you just decide to call yourself a Christian because you're not ready to let go. Or maybe you decide you're going to lose the Christian. It's a big step. You lose friends. You lose family. I've lived it, but I promise you it's worth it on the other side. Of course, you're going to cry when you see them go, but you need to do what's best for you. And hiding in the shadows is not good for anyone. What time is it? 11:19. How many? Oh my gosh, we have 114K likes. Usually I try to wait to get to 100K likes for us to do, yes, Marjorie, to cast our circles. So who is on the live today that would like to cast a circle? So witches traditionally cast a circle. Hi, Snake Lady. I was just on the, oh my gosh, this weekend is I forget what you call it. Marjorie, type it in there. What are we watching? It's all these classes on the paranormal. And we're watching a class on haunted dolls, and I was talking about Snake Lady who adopted one of my haunted dolls, and I was like, I miss her so much. I sometimes want to ask for her back because my son moved out of the house, but I know you take good care of her and she loves your animals, and I think she loves it at your house because she likes women. I just don't think she likes men. But Cecily, I didn't know my daughter was on here. She was not evil. I think she just went after Kai, Cecily, because Kai's a boy. I don't think she likes men. That is what I think. Yeah, The one, she was like showing herself in my black mirror. She sits over here, but in the hallway, it was like she was glowing in that mirror. My son was freaking out. But she is very happy with Snake Lady. And I need a video of her, Snake Lady, because I miss her. All right, so we're gonna cast a circle. Casting a circle for a witch is traditionally done during your spell work. It's done when you're doing ceremonial magic, high magic, and it's creating a protective circle. Now, there are many different ways to cast a circle, and the circle I'm talking about casting is not for spell work or magical work. It is a circle of protection, yes, like we use when we do spell work, but it is a energetic circle casting, which is a circle casting of protection and empowerment. So it is cast through a guided meditation, and you will just need to find somewhere to sit where you are rooted from your sit bones tall all the way to the crown of your head, or if you're laying down like flat on your back and you're not like curled up like this, because the channels of your body need to be open so you can embody all of the elements that we are calling in, that we were talking about earlier on the live, that the pentacles stand for: earth, air, fire, water, spirit. The circle around the 5-pointed star, we'll end where we began with that 5-pointed star. See the circle around it. What the circle is a representation of the circle of protection the witch casts, or it can be a representation of the witch's hat. The circular brim of the witch's hat is a circle of protection. Our hats, the hats I wear and that I sell on my website, are made of wool. Their frequency is grounding. And we also have a point of the hat which connects you to spirit, opens your channel. So we're energetically creating that through the casting of the circle. I call in each direction, the guardian of that direction, a deity to hold space there for you. I believe the deities are archetypes that exist within us that carry an energy. When you call them forth, they'll show up for each of us differently because they're multi-dimensional archetype energies. And so they will show up for each of us, creating this protective circle around us. Now, this protective circle that we're going to cast will remain until you lay your head down to sleep tonight, because that's the way I cast the circle. The reason I do this is there's an opening and a closing for us collectively, and I am commanding that we be lifted up to the 7th and 8th plane of existence. Now, what that does is bring you up to a higher level of consciousness so that you can receive transcendent wisdom. This wisdom is the same type of wisdom that you receive when you are in meditation. So after casting the circle, you usually feel very like at peace, very fully in your body, but very connected and almost disconnected from the drama. You're able to step out and see what needs to happen next that you haven't been seeing. You see the directions you've been going that you need to release. It's a very good time to do this with the Aries full moon, because we're releasing a lot of ego that is actually blocking us and creating more war in our life rather than creating more of what we want to see on this planet. So if you want to join us, find somewhere that you will be undisturbed, that you can lie down or sit up, again, keeping everything straight from here to here, so that from crown to root, so that when we call in those elements, they are firmly anchoring within your bodies, so that when the circle closes, when you lie your head to sleep tonight, or opens, I should say, it opens, it'll never be broken. It will be a sovereign circle for you, but the wisdom will continue to flow through you for the rest of the week. The full moon, I'm not sure which day it is. It is coming up though. It's at the beginning of this week, I believe. It's like the 6th, 7th, depending on where you live. So if you want to be a part of the circle casting, please type in the chat, I accept, I receive. This, it's just you claiming that this circle casting is for you as well. But if you're going to do that, I ask you to stay in the chat and close your eyes and just let the comments roll. And if people come in and listen, they can listen. But you need to either state out loud, I accept, I receive, I claim something, or type it in the chat so that this opens up this channel for you. And when you go to sleep tonight, the channel will close, and then throughout the week you're going to embody more fully the light aspect of yourself and burn away that darkness of ego that is keeping you trapped. So I'm going to grab a drink real quick and we'll get started. Go ahead and close your eyes and have your palms open for receiving. The palms can be turned down for grounding if you feel too up and out of your body. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Fill your entire body up with your breath. When you get to the top, hold, soften your shoulders, soften your hips, your knees. 3, 2, 1, part your lips, audibly let go. Push all the air out of your body using your abdominal muscles, and then pause at the bottom of that breath when you're empty. Notice what it feels like to be empty. And then seal your lips and slowly inhale through the nose. Feel the air move through the nostrils, through the lungs, the throat, deep into the belly, into the womb, aura, all the way through your legs, your feet, your arms, your hands. Whole body is full of breath. Hold at the top, softening yourself into this feeling of fullness, parting your lips and audibly let go. Again, pressing all the air out of your body until every last drop is gone. And then sealing your lips and a quick inhale through the nose, filling up quicker. Hold at the top, take in one more sip, one more sip, one more sip, hold. Notice what it feels like to be full here. You're gonna let something go with this breath. Hold, hold, hold. You can hold it a little longer. Part the lips and let go. Let all the stagnant air go. Push your abdominal muscles to release it all. Seal the lips and reset your breath. Let it move back into this nice natural rhythm and pace. The breath flows in, the breath flows out. Imagine yourself gently rocking. Feel yourself moving in and out with the ocean. In and out goes the breath. Your eyes are closed. The eyes are heavy. The jaw is soft. The shoulders are relaxed. Notice the feeling of where the air is touching your hands, the palm of your hands. Notice the air touching your skin of your arms, your legs, your feet. Feeling every part of your body soften into this moment as I call forth concentric circles of light to surround us now. Across mountains and cities, countries, continents. These circles of light surround us individually and collectively. Everyone that is claiming and accepting this sacred circle sees their radiant sovereign circle of light uniquely for themselves, witnessing it without judging it or wondering what it means, just noticing. Is the light thick? Is it a thin line? Does it radiate and blur? You are in the center of this sacred circle. Notice how the light is interacting with your physical body. Firmly anchoring yourself in the center of this circle, surrendering to the earth, surrendering to your sovereign energy, clearing everything that came before this moment and opening to everything that will become after this moment. I call forth the guardians of the watchtowers of the north, south, east, and west to watch over and witness the sacred circle. Guardian of the north, keeper of earth, I invoke the elements and the spirits of earth. Mother of witches, keeper of the crossroads, she who holds the flame at this Aries full moon, burning away darkness. She who stands on the earth firmly, holding out the keys for you to open the door to the next chapter of your life. She who shares the hard truths. She who brings you to your knees but meets you there, heart to heart, eye to eye, reminding you that you are never alone on this earth. You are never alone in this journey into the body you have chosen, the life that you have chosen. Bless us as we call your name. Hecate, Hecate, Hecate. Guardian of the northeast, keeper of the rising sun and the sacred healing wells, bless us as we call your name. Brigid, Brigid, Brigid. Guardian of the east, keeper of air, I invoke the elements and the spirits of air. She of 10,000 spells, she of 10,000 names. She who embodies the sun and the moon. She who awakens the wings of the shapeshifters within us all. Beautiful deity, mother, goddess, priestess, moving through every sacred circle cast today. She drags her fingers, the pointer finger and the middle finger, from root to crown, up your spine, igniting a light as she goes, awakening and balancing both the masculine and the feminine within all. Bless us as we call your name. Isis, Isis, Isis. Guardian of the southeast, keeper of sovereignty, deity who inspires freedom, truth, power, and opens up the song of your heart, the song of the Divine Mother, the part of you that is the goddess, that is connected to Source, sings through you. She she remind you of this? She awakens and clears the throat chakra. Bless us as we call your name, Rhiannon, Rhiannon, Rhiannon. Guardian of the South, keeper of fire, I invoke the elements and the spirit of fire, queen of the Fae, she who knows love is the way, she who controls the fire of love, both the righteous rage, the empowering energy of love, the beauty of love, the pain of love, the movement of the fire, the growth and the expansion of the fire. She who brings it all together in our heart. Bless us as we call your name, Anya, Anya, Anya. Guardian of the Southwest, she who has woven her magic through history, through the shadows of the feminine, just as the witch has done. She who has been labeled prostitute, whore, the way the witch has been labeled evil and demonic. She who is the true embodiment of the full feminine. Bless us as we call your name, Mary Magdalene, Mary Magdalene, Mary Magdalene. Guardian of the West, keeper of water, I invoke the elements and the spirits of water, keeper of the sacred cauldron, keeper of magic, keeper of alchemy, keeper of the weaver's web. Awakening during this season in the heart of the witch, the power of alchemy, the commitment within us all to persevere during this time where the hearts of humans are heavy and weary and tired from the journey. She awakens your perseverance to the spell that we are casting for collective peace and harmony on this planet, for the powers of tyranny, for the powers of evil that are hidden within what looks like is pure. She awakens the perseverance to cast the spell, to continue moving forward, to remember why you came here, to continue opening your heart, to continue speaking your truth, to continue being who you are. Bless us as we call your name, Caradwyn, Caradwyn, Caradwyn. Guardian of the Northwest, weaver of our sacred circle, queen of witches, carrier of the 13 powers of the witch, she who works her magic for the oppressed people of our time, as well as the other times and dimensions on this planet when the people were oppressed. This deity who keeps weaving her web again and again until this planet is healed. Bless us as you seal our circle today, as we call your name, Aradia, Aradia, Aradia. I call forth the loving Earth Mother from below us to rise up and support us, as we surrender into your loving embrace. Blood of my blood, flesh of my flesh, this body, my soul, our soul, has chosen for this incarnation is one with the loving Earth Mother, anchoring into her energy, to her magnetic life force that gives us life, surrendering to what gives us life. We call forth the ancestors that have returned their physical bodies to the earth, that continue to walk with us in a good way from across all timelines and dimensions and realities. We call forth the ancestors that came before us, that walk with us in a good way from our bloodlines. We call forth the Fae, the elementals, the gnomes, all of those spiritual protectors of our loving Earth Mother and the ancestors. From above us, we call forth the star brothers and sisters, those watching over us from other realities. We call forth the palpable energy of the star systems where each of us originated from, connecting us to our origins, connecting us to our soul, and through the above and below that we have just invoked in the around, we come to wholeness at center, bringing your hands to heart center, your left hand on your heart, your right hand over the top of it, as we call forth the I am presence of each sovereign individual in this circle today. And as we do so, we call this circle sealed, and we lift it up, up, up to the 7th and 8th plane of consciousness, where divine knowing and miracles take place, opening to this transcendent space while connected to our bodies, connected to the earth, and protected in our sacred circle. And as we do so, we anchor in to this full sovereign embodiment of self, sealing this sacred circle. As above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. This circle is now sealed. It is done, it is done, it is done, and so it is. Blessed be. Big breath in. Long breath out. Big breath in. Hold at the top. Calibrate to this energy, this frequency, this space, and as you exhale, gently flutter your eyes open, taking in the colors, the space around you, where you are now, how you feel now. And I invite you to type into the chat any colors you've seen, any deities that showed themselves to you, any aha moments. I welcome you to speak in this chat. Anything. Blessed be Star Tarot readings. You've seen white, green. Blessed be yellow. A lot of tingling in the hands. Blessed be, felt wonderful, experienced peace. Gray, I love that. Black, ooh, favorite of mine. Rainbow, green and browns, my children. Circle refreshed, red, orange, purple, pink. Special connection with Hecate and Isis. I love it. My circle was pale green, but it was also like I was sitting under a dark purple sky full of stars. I love it. Red and orange. purple. Blessed be. You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Fall leaves. Oh, I love that. I saw a circle of light gold. I saw purple and white. Connection with Hecate and Bridget. And remember, when you have those connections, peace and tranquility. Blessed be. Caradwin came through. I love that. So remember, when these deities show themselves to you, you saw fall leaves too. I love that. Tingling on the top of your head. Black shadows. Ooh, we've got a shadow worker. Is that those deities are making themselves known as they are an archetype that exists within you, meaning what they embody, you are learning to embody right now. So keep that in mind when those connections come forth, like Isis's gifts, Hecate's gifts, Caradon's gifts, Bridget's gifts. They exist within you. Is it the healer that's awakening? Is it the shadow worker that's awakening? Really, I am a big advocate for making altars as a portal to connect to the divine. So I always suggest making an altar to connect with that archetype that exists within you. I don't create altars to worship a deity. I consider that deity an energy archetype that exists within me. So I'm opening myself up to that higher level wisdom through my altars, and I highly suggest that. But also, your body is an altar. Your spirit chose to honor and explore self as well. So remember, even if you can't or you're not in a position to make an altar, that you are in the altar. A lot of people will bash me for my witch aesthetic, but your body is an altar just as much as your altar is an altar, So I just answered a question you were about to ask. I'm not sure which one I answered, but I'm glad I answered it. What does it mean to see shadows a lot now after doing shadow work for 5 years? I think if you're seeing shadows, you're just recognizing now, instead of them being so hidden, they're making themselves known to you, Shadow work isn't about literal shadows, but you're noticing, I would take that as a sign that you're noticing the shadows that exist on our planet and still are working or there for you to work with. What is my favorite fall ritual? I like working, and I guess I wouldn't call this fall, I would call it Samhain, because I do wait until the Hunter full moon, but I make an altar for an ancestor altar, and I'm in the process of switching mine to my ancestor altar, and that just means I'm venerating and honoring my ancestors. I've got pictures of some of my ancestors up here right now. That I always work with around this time, and so I always completely shift my altar to that honoring of the ancestors. And so I'm always, daily during that time lighting a candle and asking their presence to come forward. I love to do mirror scrying during this time. Any form of divination at this time is really high on my list of loves to do, because the veil is so thin. So, whether you're doing a mirror scrying in your bathroom mirror or your black mirror, the ancestors, any spirits that are working with you, I work with haunted dolls, connecting with them more during this time. And just being in that liminal space for me daily is really important to me. And I was talking about this earlier in the live, but when you're embodying your full authentic witchy self, I think a lot of us do have to disconnect from old relationships, and it depends to the extent that you are wanting to embody that, right? All of us humans have the ability to be mediums and psychics and channels and all of this, but it's what are you willing to give up? And sometimes our toxic friendships prevent us from fully embodying those abilities that we came into this life with. You know, a lot of times we talk about witches having gifts. I call them abilities, unique abilities that are strengths to use specifically. And for me, that looked like I used to drink a lot, go out to the bars a lot, dance. Like literally for me to be a like social butterfly, I had to drink, and I had to give up that drinking to be able to open my channel and do the healing work that I needed to do to be who I am today. So there's parts of us that we need to let go of to be the person we want to be. So how much are you wanting to develop your abilities as a witch? Are, you know, because when the veils are thin, of course it's easier for all of us to connect with spirits and ancestors and stuff, but this can be your whole life if you are intending it to be, and if you're living your life that way, you know. But things like alcohol they can distort your journey. They can invite in a lot of negative energies. You know, it's living your life as a witch. When you find other witches who live their life the same way, it's so fun because, you know, you do, when you embody this path, find yourself feeling a little alone because there's not a lot of us out there. And that's why I host retreats, or why I started hosting them, was because I always had this vision of getting women together and doing all these ceremonies and rituals that I would do by myself in my backyard. But it also brought me together with the coven I always wished or dreamed of having. And that's what you see videos of on my page, is these retreats that I've been creating for 5 years, and they've just expanded and grown every year. You know, they become a little something different for each group that gathers. So next year we have Salem in 2026 in May, and then we will have again, like we're having Practical Magic at the end of this month in Sedona, so that's sold out. But if you want to come to next year's Practical Magic, you can come. You know, it's in Samhain next October. We have payment plans. So if you're one of those witches that's like, I feel kind of alone in my world, and I can't find a coven, and I feel like alone, and I keep bouncing between like really like being the witch I want to be, and then like feeling lonely, and like becoming more of the worldly, and it's like you have to take those steps, whether it's a retreat, joining a virtual coven, to put yourself around other like-minded people so that you can create support. And what that looks like in the age of Aquarius and in this modern world is a lot of times we can't find that in our town we live in. So we have to open up to virtual spaces that are healthy. That's why I have the virtual coven, and that's like $22 a month. You get access to that if you are taking any of my witch school courses. So, and the group, like we have a private group app on Wix, and you know, the women in there, I do believe, you know, some come, some go, you know, it's kind of a revolving door, but it does open up connections and friendships between women. And if you want that real in-life person experience, I'd invite you to join us at one of our retreats. They are the highlight of my life. You know, people ask often about the videos you see on my TikTok, if they're created and like staged, and they're not staged. We just have someone who's videoing our retreat. Like, of course, some things are us taking pictures just standing there, so we have someone video that. But the ceremonies you see are clips of actual ceremonies. We're not like setting something up to video it. This is what we do at our retreats, and it's amazing. It's amazing. So, you know, if you're feeling lonely, that's 2 ways that I have created to bring witches together. And I also have what I call Witch School, which is all online classes. You know, I've got Way of a Witch, which is the year-in-a-day course, takes you from, you know, the basics of foundational teaching, spiritualism, energy work, shadow work, spell spell work, all of it. And then I've got a basic course, Practical Magic for the Solitary Witch, where you learn to embody those elements that we were talking about at the beginning of the live with the pentacle. Learn to cast a circle. You get spells for each element. And then I have Spellbound. Spellbound for manifesting magic and Spellbound for baneful magic. Baneful magic is more for the practiced, identified, embodied witch. I have Journey to Me and Yoga. So there's a lot of stuff you guys can choose from if you want to learn more from me. I am usually here 95% of the time. I am always live every Sunday morning. Other than that, I just pop in and out. If you haven't followed me, go ahead and follow me. The payment for the school, you pay for it in the link in my bio. There is everything you need to know. I am connected to PayPal, which PayPal can give you a payment plan or something if you want to use that. But thank you guys for being here. Thank you for the gift, Haley. Thank you for casting a circle with me. Thank you for being witches, for embodying the truth of who you are. And remember, with this full moon, to take the time to identify what you are stripping away that is keeping you small. What is preventing you from who you are really meant to be? And remember, if the energies get really high and you start to feel that energy of like God of War, remember that's shadow Aries, and shift that a little bit. Shift it so that you are the protector of women and children. You are the warrior of women and children. Don't just fight for the sake of fighting. When the Aries energy comes up, lots of stuff can happen and shift. And so remember, you've got a full week through this full moon now that you're in this embodied circle of really stepping into who you're meant to be as you're shedding the old parts of you. So start calling your ancestors in, ask them to assist you in being the pattern breaker in your familial lineage. Write down the things that you are noticing that block you or prevent you from being the person you want to be, that you're having a hard time changing, and burn them. Let them burn away. And remember, as you burn them away, you're burning away darkness. You're also blessing another aspect of yourself to be reborn. And tune in to the spirits around you. Refresh your protection wards. Protection is important during this time because the veils are so thin. So remember, refresh the protection wards. Casting circles daily is my way of protecting myself. Put your crystals that keep you safe out under the full moon. Put your wards on your windows with Florida water. Whatever it is that you do, make sure you're protected, but also stay open. Don't protect yourself so much that you block yourself from those spirits that are actually good. Just identify that you only want to work with spirits that are for your highest and best good. And thank you for joining me. Thank you to my moderators. I wasn't paying a ton of attention to the chat today, so thank you guys for JS, is that Jess? Yes, Estelle says, I burn away darkness and bless this person. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Blessed be everyone. Have a happy full moon. Hi, Jessie Lee. My voice doesn't go that deep, but I love it. Haley, hi. I didn't see you, Haley. Yes, we all, like that phrase from the last retreat, we kept saying it over and over because sometimes I become hypnotized by Stella's voice during our ceremonies, and I feel like I'm like in La La Land, but because her voice becomes so deep, and she just, one of the sayings, I burn away darkness and bless this besom, and she's got like this beautiful, what do you call it, her accent, Australian, I guess it's Australian accent, and her deep voice, and it's, I can't even do it, but it just like, yeah, it became a thing at the retreat, and it was so fun. And I'm so excited for Practical Magic because, these 2 or 3 retreats I hold every year, they're so fun. You get to live the life that you never knew you always wanted. Yeah. So I hope those of you who haven't signed up for next year that are thinking about it, there are payment plans available. Go check them out. And I hope you have a blessed full moon. I love you all, my retreat sisters. I burn away darkness and bless this besom and full moon. Blessed be. Love you all. See you next time. I will go drink water, Marjorie. Thank you for always reminding me and for being my anchor and rock. Bye, Jess. Bye, Jessie. Bye, Haley. Bye, Mama B. Bye, Anita, Eclectic Goddess. I think I got everybody. Flower Child. Love you all. Angie, baby.